Okay, so raise your hand if you'd like to win this hackathon. If you'd like to win this hackathon, raise your hand. Those that are not paying attention are not going to win the hackathon. Raise your hand if you'd like to win the hackathon. Okay, raise it high, raise it high, raise it high. Excellent. You're paying attention. The rest will figure it out. So now, I'm going to be sharing in the next 10 minutes, 10 minutes, the phases of the hackathon. Okay? So this is your roadmap. This is your roadmap to successfully completing all the phases and being able to submit your final presentation on time or under time. Sound good? Right. So, phase 1. And these times are actually, we're gonna adjust these times because we want to be a little bit ahead of schedule. So the first phase is to The first phase is to define the project scope and the project functionality. So who knows? Raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about when I say project scope. Project scope, project functionality. Raise your hand if you're a developer. I see one hand. Raise your hand if you're a developer. Développement. C'est la personne de développement. Okay. Okay. Sont et 6 phases. La première phase est la phase en qui. It's the phase in which you outline your project. You get clear on what you want it to do, and you get clear on the phase, on the key functionality that you want to complete. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. So get clear on what is the one problem you want your project to solve. Next slide. And then this is a key piece, is determine the one piece of functionality that is both essential pour résolver les problèmes, je pense en français, to solve the problem, and number 2, this is very important, able to be completed by the end of the hackathon. Okay, we're not building enterprise software here, okay? But this is a mobile application to solve a specific problem in the context of really optimizing life. And I know that yesterday there was a context and a series of events around the context of Smart Africa. Right? How is it possible to make life easier, more effortless, more graceful than it is right now? And how is it possible to be able to use our creativity and use our technology to be able to do that? How does that sound? Does that sound good? Awesome. Next slide. So whatever those two things are, focus on that. And then, well, this is actually a slide for the open innovation. Those winners of this hackathon, you have the opportunity of being invited to the open innovation, some of the next upcoming open innovations with corporations. The last open innovation we had 1,000 personnes applicantes. Oui. 30 were selected. So it's very rigorous. There's a lot of demand, and it's a very rigorous program. Next slide. Phase 2, draw a wireframe of the core functionality. Raise your hand if you know what I mean by say wireframe. Do you know a wireframe? Yes, one. Wireframe. Qui est wireframe en français? Wireframe? Hein? Maquette. Savez-vous une maquette? Oui? Ok, parfait. Ici est la phase 2. So, vous pouvez utiliser le fluidui.com to create your maquette, your wireframe, or you can use another tool if you'd like. So this phase 2 will essentially, we want to complete that like at 6 o'clock or sooner, So go ahead and hit play. This is a storyboard example. This is a fluid UI. Of course, this gives you a kind of a sense. So this is actually like an app demo, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So go ahead and just hit the next slide. Phase 3. This is where we get into the meat of things. This is using the design that you created and building it in the ScreenD platform. So with phase 3, essentially to complete phase 3, you just need like 3 screenshots to show that you've created the 3 pages. And so this is important, and if you have any questions, if there are any senior developers here, you actually do not, there's no requirement to use ScreenD. Okay? There's no requirement to use ScreenD. If you have another tool, like Ionic or another mobile app development program, you can use that if you want. And we found that ScreenD is one of the fastest, easiest developers here, and that's why we're using it. So this phase 3, actually, you want, in order to be on time, you want to complete that by midnight tonight. So phase 4, if your project has a back end, raise your hand if you know what I say, back end. Une date basse. Une date basse. Oh, little petit man. Right? Raise your hand high. Raise it high. Okay, awesome. So you know what I mean when I say back end, the database. If your project has a database, then you want to complete it by 4 a.m. 4 a.m. in order to be on time. Phase 5. Then, très simple, you connect the front end with the back end. Right? The database with ScreenD. If you are using, or if you're creating a back end. Now, some of you might be doing something different. You might be doing an application or an API, and that's okay. So if it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to your project, and that's totally okay. So we'll be sharing with you information about the different phases, and we are going to do something that is in between. It's not quite as intense and rigorous as the open innovation. So for the open innovation, I'm the person responsible for making sure all the teams complete all the phases in the allotted time. So in Marrakesh, there were 15 teams, there were 8 phases, there were 48 hours. I didn't sleep too much, but that's okay. So here, we're going to do it slightly differently, where, in there, each team submitted, and then we as a team approved that they completed it. Here, we're leaving it up to you, but we're going to give you an option for you to tell us if you think that you are complete with each phase, and we'll share that data, those documents on Google Drive with the porteurs de le projet. Yeah? C'est bon? Yeah? Okay. Next slide. Okay, so this is phase 5. If you're doing this, connecting the back end with the front end, you want to complete this by 8 o'clock or breakfast. Okay? Phase 6, so now we're getting into the presentation. This is completing your app demo video. This is very important. This is between 30 seconds to a minute, and it is you doing a voiceover showing the functionality of your application, and you want to have a voiceover. Merci. You want to have a voiceover because that's going to be used in other contexts besides the final presentation. Okay? So you want to complete this by 10 a.m. Phase 7 is the Google slide presentation. Now I will say now and I will repeat again, 100% Google Slide. 100% Google Slide. 100% Google Slide. And you'll see why. We're not going to use PowerPoint, Microsoft. It's a great program, but just not for what we're doing here. Because everything will be on the cloud and we'll all be able to access it very easily. Ça va? C'est bon? Okay. So this, you want to have your Google Slide presentation, the first draft, to be on time. First draft completed by 1 o'clock. By 1 p.m. 13 heures demain. For complete les phase 7. And then you'll get into your final pitches. So raise your hand if you're the porteur de le projet. Porteur de le projet. Levante les mains, s'il vous plaît. Le porteur de le projet. C'est un poème, yeah? Raise your hand, porteur de le projet. Okay? So you will be from 1 to 4. Is it 1 to 4? No, 1 to complete and master. Well, let's just say like 1 to 2. You will be working on your pitches, and you'll be practicing your pitches. Okay, so by 1 p.m., everything should be like the first draft of your slide presentation should be totally complete, and then you're just refining things. Yes. Okay, so in a moment, oh, you're coming back? Okay, but we're almost done, and then we're going to get into the pitch. Okay, so Jaula, if you can hear the sound of my voice, Jaula. She's not here yet. Okay, so soon we're going to get into a pitch, so you'll have just 1 minute to explain your idea. And then we're going to quickly form teams. And then you can start to get to work. Sound good? Okay. And then, well, also that there's going to be a presentation. Some of the other Screendy team is going to present in more detail the Screendy platform. So you can have a better sense of what it is and how it works. Next slide. Okay, so essentially, yeah, so phase 8 is just being clear on what your your goal for your presentation is. Is it to win the hackathon? Is it to gain clients? Is it to gain advisors? Is it to gain feedback? If you begin with the end in mind, then you can craft your pitch and your presentation specifically for that. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if that makes sense.